If you clicked on this video, it's because you want to learn about ants. I'm the guy for you. I'm going to tell you right now, this is my favorite insect. Favorite bug, possibly. This bug is legendary. There you go, thumbnail answered. But I'm going to tell you why in this video. So stick around. Let's get into the facts. There's so many of them. Just listen to some of the spectacles of facts about ants, all right? They've colonized almost every landmass on Earth, just not Antarctica. Makes sense, right? There are at least 14,000 ant species known and 20 quadrillion estimated ants in the world. So, I don't know if you know, but that's a lot more than humans. They exceed the combined biomass of wild birds and mammals. Ant societies have divisions of labor, communication between individuals, and ability to solve complex problems. So, sounds like a society I know. Humans, possibly. Getting into the fun fact. Oh my god, my fun fact slide was switched. Fun fact. Ants build bridges with each other's bodies to get from point A to point B if they can't do it on the ground. They also build rafts. So ants are genius. How are they communicating this? Well, we're going to get into that. But look at that bridge. They literally are just putting their bodies on the line. And then at the end of the bridge, they'll just dangle up and crawl up each other's bodies. They all make it across. It's beautiful. It's genius. What's the ant IQ? I don't know. Do ants have IQ? Is it comparative? Is it relative? I don't know. But keep sticking around in this video because we're going to learn more about ants, all right? We're going to get into the evolution here. Where do ants come from? Well, people believe that they come from wasps. Wasps, bees, and ants all up there together. So, it looks like there's an ant mangling a bee here. They could be hugging, I don't know. But we know the bees are valuable, and we're going to do a bees video eventually. But the ants are valuable too. A fossil of an ant from the Cretaceous period, 92 million years ago, showed great resemblance to a wasp. But where's the difference? Well, most ants don't have the capacity to fly. They decided somewhere along the way that they were more advantageous on the ground. That could be because their burrowing tendencies, or could be because they're more accessible to plants on the ground. Couldn't find that specification, but you have it here. That's where they evolved from. And then if there were to be an ant that had wings, that ant would be called an alate. All right? An alate. Kind of have to remember that, but not really. Getting into the morphology, what makes an ant an ant? They're denotable by their elbowed antenna. Obviously, you see that little antenna there, and you're like, wow. But look at this thing. This thing looks like a soldier. It's got the exoskeleton, looks like a body of armor. Humans, our bones and stuff like that, our skeleton inside our body, but they got the exoskeleton, as do most bugs. Most ants are about 10 millimeters large and colored yellow, brown, red, or black, although some ants can be metallic or green. Bet you didn't know that. Ants, among all other insects, do not have lungs or blood vessels. They have valves where carbon passes through, and they also have perforated tubes running down their back called the dorsal aorta. Functions like a heart. Same thing with a nerve cord, so that's on what would be our equivalent of the spine. The average ant has poor vision. Their antennae are used to detect chemicals and vibrations and give signals through touch, and their jaws are their money makers because they help them carry and manipulate objects and food. You've seen the ants carrying big objects. It's those strong jaws of theirs. You see those little two extended out things right there? Yeah, impressive, right? Wings on ants, if you see them, even though alates, we talked about that, they only belong to queens and males. And usually the ant's head size is the determining factor of its job within an ant society. I know, a lot, but stick with me. Let's get into the reproduction. It looks like they're reproducing here based off of this photo, but I assure you it doesn't work that way. Here's how it works. Females lay eggs. Okay? The females lay the eggs. If the egg gets fertilized by a male, the egg becomes female. If it doesn't become fertilized, it remains male. Worker ants, the ones that you hear about in the society doing all these things, building the hills and stuff, they're all female. most ants are actually female. And their caste is determined by the nutrients they receive in growth. So, your probability of becoming a queen ant is higher if you get that good shit when you're a baby larvae. And I told myself I wouldn't swear in this video, but I did it again, so I apologize. Male ants, or drones, legitimately function only to reproduce, and then they die most of the time. So, sounds like some of my college buddies, am I right? But yeah, queens, male ants, they live for like a couple of weeks. Queens can live for decades. So the whole ant schematic is really just ran by the female ants. And I found that very interesting. Sometimes you have male ants going into other ant populations trying to get their queen or mate with some of their females. And when they infiltrate an enemy base, it could be a nest, could be a hill. When they get attacked, they release a pheromone. The attackers then smell the pheromone, and they decide if that ant is worthy of breeding with their queen. If they are, they let the ant through, and they take him into their society. If not, they kill him on the spot. But there's a lot of more interesting pheromone stuff that we're going to get into with ants. Do some research on pheromones. Maybe we'll do a video on pheromones, but it's pretty much their main angle of function. And most ants live in one nest. They don't go from nest to nest. So, yeah, this is a lot of stuff, but I hope you're keeping up. And I'm trying to do the eye contact thing too. I look into the screen and I don't look so much at my notes, but I have so many ant notes. Getting into behavior. All of ants' communication occurs through pheromones, which we discussed, sounds, and touch. When an ant is returning from a hunt with food, it marks the soil with its own pheromones, causing the other ants to follow in line. It stops marking it once they've ran out of food, all the food has been consumed, and every time an ant goes on a hunt, it's always trying to find the shortest route back. So it uses its own smell, it uses its own sensory abilities. They don't have the greatest eyesight, but they can detect motion that they've previously seen. And they have embedded pedometers. When you check your watch and you can see how many steps you took? Ants have that mechanism embedded into their little tiny ant brain. So I bet you couldn't tell me how many steps you took today. An ant could tell you if they could quantify numbers, but figuratively, they could do it. That's ants for you. Ants defend themselves by biting, and some even sting. So when you get stung by a fire ant, you feel that little pinch. Most of the stings aren't deadly. There's a few ants that have deadly stings, but most of them aren't. Ants learn their mechanisms of work, whether they're builders or foragers. They learn through tandems. It's like a sort of apprenticeship thing. So if one ant has a ton of knowledge, they'll take another ant on an expedition with them and show them the ropes. Sounds kind of like humans. I keep emphasizing this about ants. Shows them the ropes, man. You got to respect it. Ants make nests in all type of locations. Ant nests vary. They could be leaves, they could be hills. We're going to do a little bit about hills here in a second. But they also build temporary nests with their bodies sometimes. Certain species do. And that's a big thing to denote. All ant species are different, so different tendencies in all ant species. Certain ones more common, certain ones less common. But, if you got a specific favorite ant, look through the ant species database. It's on the internet. And figure out your favorite based on what they do. If ants can't rummage through the traditional picnic lunch, they tend to develop mechanisms where they can survive off of nitrogen or fungus. So, not every ant is living in your rural St. Louis area or wherever you might live. Some ants are really out there in the rainforest and the jungle, and that's the streets for them, so they got to make it go. So yeah, that's their means of nutrition. They'll find a way, because ants find a way. Forager ants can travel up to 700 feet from their nest over ground, and the whole time the way they get back is the sense of smell. But it's considered an expedition, and there's no guarantee they make it back alive. A lot of ants die, often male, from expeditions like that. Getting into the anthill, what a spectacle. Anthills. 2 meters deep, most anthills, underground. So you see, this is called the tip of the iceberg. You ever heard that expression? Tiny little anthill, 2 meters down. That's taller than me. That's like 6.5 feet down. Or maybe it's about my height. if there's if my girlfriend's watching. Let's go with that. Up to 250,000 ants can live in any given anthill, so that kind of addresses the amount of ants that are in the world in general. Queen is just nuking out 1,500 ant babies a day, so it's just dropping eggs. Either they get fertilized or nourished by other eggs or by other ants in the anthill. The average depth of the nest, we talked about that, absurd. I mean, that's deep into the ground, and they just split off in different directions. And then some of the foraging ants actually, rather than traveling above ground, they'll travel right under the surface in different directions. But this gives them capacity to, beetles sometimes infiltrate and they eat the eggs and stuff. Takes a few days to build, only a few days. And about once a year, they'll make a new anthill, they'll make a new home base. They're always switching it up, ants. So, listen, I just dropped everything on you. So much ant facts. I mean, these creatures are different. I personally find ants most interesting because they cooperate like no other. And that leads us into the takeaway. Imagine if humans cooperated like this. You want to get over there. I'm going to build a bridge for you with my body. That's sacrifice. And that's a servant mentality. Some of these ants don't even see the light of day. Some of these ants are out here just doing their job. If you got a job to do it to your best ability and don't complain about it, because ants don't even have a mouth to complain. And if they did, I bet you they wouldn't complain anyways, because they were made for what they get done. Ants are epic. I remember when I was a kid, somebody told me that an ant could fall from any height and it wouldn't die. From that moment on, ant has always been my favorite insect. These are ruthless. They're different. And we need to strive to be as different as ants. Short on ants dropping later on the channel today. Until the next elaboration, I appreciate y'all checking this one out. Have a great night.